Awesome. Thank you, Paxton. We are moving right along. It is time for Jackie to present to us about advisory committees. You ready, Freddie?
Yes, I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Are you able to see that?
We see your, yes, perfect.
Okay. So one of the requirements that Carrie mentioned just a few minutes ago was that you need to have an advisory committee. And as she mentioned, the primary reason for having an advisory committee is so that you can have that industry connection. And it provides you that opportunity to connect with your local area, with those businesses, industry people, to seek their knowledge. And you know, it's exciting today listening to how many of you have come from industry to teach. So, you know, you have expertise there that a lot of those that are just going directly into teaching do not have. And so having that industry connection is important. Plus, it's important to know what your community needs, because we're basically training our students not only for globally, but also for your community, because if they do, in fact, do any internships, they're going to probably be doing that locally. So primary thing is industry connection. So more than 50% of your committee membership should be industry or business people. So they will then be a resource for your field trips. They could be guest speakers. Again, you could use them for internships. I know some programs have had them come in and let students do job interviews with them. And even though sometimes these may have to be virtually this year, you still could do that. You could do virtual field trips. You could have a virtual speaker. Those are still possible. It makes it a little more difficult, but you can do it. You need to meet a minimum of once per year. And your committee roster should include their titles. So again, I mentioned at least 50% of them should be industry partners. The balance of your committee could be student leaders, parents, and administration. Lots of times I would have like for instance, my BPA president or someone from the student organization participating. It's also ideal to have a technology center instructor on that if you're a K-12 school. So if you were, for instance, having your advisory committee in Tulsa, you might want to have somebody come from Tulsa Tech to be on your committee. So one thing that you're going to want to make sure that you have besides your roster of membership is an agenda and minutes of your meetings. And you need to, or we recommend that you keep this documentation for 5 years. The reason for 5 years is because we come out and do 5-year evaluations. So we're checking your programs, and this is an area that we definitely will be checking. So some things to consider with your advisory committee. Schools may have multiple instructors. I know a number of you have more than one instructor that is for your school. And so we allow you to go ahead and share your advisory committee. So it would be your BMITE advisory committee for your school. But one of the requirements is for it to count for each of the instructors is that they must attend each meeting. So they can't say, okay, well, you guys can go ahead and conduct the session for me and I'll get credit for it. It doesn't work that way. You have to all be in attendance. And if you have multiple courses that are being offered, for instance, each of you offers different courses, then you'll want to make sure and have 2 industry people for each of those courses. So let's say you're teaching the administrative side, you're teaching the IT side, and you're teaching marketing courses. You're going to want to have industry, at least 2 industry people for each of those areas, so that each of you from your school that are teaching in BMITE have at least 2 representatives for each of those courses that you're offering, so that you can glean their expertise in those areas. So considerations when you share an advisory committee. Remember, this isn't just one person that should be in charge of this. So you need to divide this up. So what courses are you teaching to determine who will be the committee members? What teachers will take care of planning the meeting? What teachers will contact those industry representatives? What teacher is going to document the meeting? Who will continue communication with the industry? And what else needs to be done? What else do you need to do? Are you going to have refreshments? Who's going to handle that? Where's the location? Remember, as Carrie said, we would like you to have them come to your school. So if there's multiple people, you may want to trade having it in your room when you have it, so that they can see, or do a tour of each of your rooms while you have them there. That's so that they can see what you're using, how, what type of equipment you have, so they can give you recommendations. Because one of the primary things for having that advisory committee is for them to give you ideas of what you should purchase or what you should be using, how you should be training. For instance, maybe they'll come into your classroom and they'll say, what version of Windows are you using? And maybe you're using a really old version. Maybe one of their recommendations is going to be that you go ahead and upgrade to a newer version of Windows. You want to make sure you're documenting that so that if your administration questions any of those purchases, you have that proof there from your advisory committee meeting. So besides the roster, I thought one of the things that I wanted to share with you is what a correct agenda would look like. Because one of the areas that I find sometimes is deficient when we go out to do 5-year evaluations is they're keeping agendas and minutes. And it's not just for the advisory committee, it's also for BPA or DECA. Because this is something that in the business world we should be training, is there should be an appropriate agenda and minutes for your meeting. And that's documentation that we are going to want to look at when we come out for your 5-year evaluation. So let's just kind of go through these. Call to order, which can be remarks by your school personnel, whoever's going to be basically leading the meeting. You should then have minutes read or written for them to read ahead of time. And then if they are approved, fine, or if they're corrected, they need to be approved by vote. Introductions of all those people that are in attendance and biographical information about the membership, as well as any guests and instructors. Then again, in order would be old business first. This would be business that was tabled or held over from the previous meetings. And that's where you might want to record, those suggestions. You would have those suggestions listed in the minutes. That's something that you'd want to go over from the previous year. Then special reports. Maybe you had a committee that got together to survey the community for something. That would be next, followed by new business. Again, if anything comes up, a vote's required. That needs to be documented in your minutes. And then plans for the next meeting. When you're going to meet, where you're going to meet, if any subcommittees are going to be meeting, and then of course any announcements that you might make, like, we want you to join us for our BPA Appreciation, DECA Appreciation Week, whatever you might be doing for an announcement, and then also your adjournment. Now, that's your agenda. And lots of times when I go out and I see what they have for their advisory committee is they'll have their agenda and it'll be typed up, and then they have handwritten notes next to each of the items as to what the business was, and that's their minutes. That's not acceptable minutes. I don't think anybody in corporate world would accept that. So what they should be doing is then typing out those minutes from this agenda, and this is the sequence. Now, we do have an advisory committee handbook, and on the next slide, I have the link for that. It's out in CTU. It's under evaluations and program information. That has wonderful suggestions. It has examples of letters, emails to send out to your individuals that you might want to have. It has all kinds of things, and it even has a template for the minutes so that they can follow along in the correct sequence. And I would highly suggest you go ahead and make a copy of that template. But then once that's completed, they need to then actually go ahead and type up the minutes so that you have a proper formal record. So here is where you will find that advisory committee handbook. As I said, it has very, very useful tools in it. So please take advantage of it. Again, don't reinvent the wheel. That's one thing that's fabulous about Career Tech is everybody is so willing to share. And we have that handbook out there with sample emails and all kinds of things for you to use. So I highly recommend that you go ahead and use that resource. And here is the link that you can go ahead and access if you need to. Okay, so I think I've got time here to ask a couple quick questions, even though, Christy, you ran into my time. I tried to hurry through it. Anyway.
I'll give you a minute or two then.
No, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. We have plenty of time. So if you would enter into your chat.
You do have a couple of questions.
Okay, sure. I was going to do that later, but we can do that.
Sure. Oh, no, go ahead. Carrie answered them, so if they've been reading it, they're caught up.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. So in the chat, and again, I can't see the chat. Yes.
Jackie, so what the questions are centering around is whether they can share a tech center and a high school program, if they can share the same advisory committee. And I was advising them that we don't want them to do that because there are unique situations that are unique to high schools and unique to tech centers. So we do encourage you to participate on each other's so that there's a connection there, but you also really need to hold your own, and you need to hold your own so that they can be a part of your program, say in a high school in AGRA, for example. It's completely different than what they will see when they go to Meridian Technology Center. And so there's no, the reality is gone, it's missing. And so they don't get an opportunity to really see and be a part of what you're seeing from your side in your classroom and how different it is and what your needs are. And so the input is going to be changed based on the fact that Meridian's outcomes really are different than what you're preparing your students for. If that makes sense.
Very good. Yes. Thank you, Carrie. Okay, so in your chat, would you please go ahead and list an item that you would include with your first advisory committee meeting, an agenda item? And I can't see the chat, so ladies, one of you, if you would read those for me, please.
We have someone saying old business, new business, and new business, and minutes from previous meeting.
Okay. Any others?
Introductions, welcome. Discussion on what skills employers are looking for currently. Keep minutes, track attendees, what software and equipment they use, committee reports.
Very good. Yeah, and I don't think I mentioned that, but you do need to keep attendance. That's awesome. Very good. And you know, you definitely want them, especially in your very first advisory meeting, to make sure they understand what you are teaching, you know, the courses that you're offering, you know, show them your facilities and all that kind of thing. Okay, one more quick question for the chat. So how would you involve your advisory committee with your students? Any answers?
Yeah, we have some coming in. We have guest speakers, mock interviews, job shadowing, students give demos of group present or projects, real world expectations, field trips, how to dress for interviews.
Great job. Very good. So are there any other questions about advisory committees? Anybody have any others?
There's another question. Is there a set number of people to be on the committee?
No, it's just that you need to, 50% of whoever is on the committee needs to be industry. What happens a lot of times is when we go out and see who's on their advisory committee, they seem to ask a lot of other teachers, and that's really not what this is for. It is for your division, and then industry people, and then, you know, you might invite some parents and some students to participate as well. I would recommend at least 2 people per course area that you're offering.
There's a couple more questions. How long should a meeting last?
That's going to vary depending upon what all you're covering. I highly recommend that you include refreshments. It seems like it always brings more people out if you can do it in person, which is what we obviously want. If you're doing it early this year, that might not be a possibility. You may have to do it virtually, but there's no set time limit, but we would want you to make sure that you're covering as much and have as much input from those individuals as you can. And I do want to recommend that if they make suggestions to you about your program, make sure you document that. You may not be able to implement it this year. You may, and if you don't, what you would do is then you would follow up with them and explain to them why you were not able to take advantage of what they suggested. Because you all know that if you ask people for suggestions and then you don't heed it, they're not so willing to give you suggestions in the future. So make sure you're documenting all of those suggestions and then following up with those people that are on your committee as to what action you have taken. And having those minutes will help you remember what those suggestions were. Sorry, Kathy.
Oh, sorry. There's another question I think is really important for you to answer for everyone. Do we choose the advisory committee just at the beginning of the school year? How early should we all meet in the year?
That's going to be up to you. I would recommend that you try to have your advisory committee, you know, at least in the first part of the year. There's an awful lot that do 2 meetings, and they have one in the fall and one in the spring. If this is your first year, I certainly wouldn't recommend that you shoot for 2. 1 is enough to try to accomplish. And I certainly wouldn't do it at the very, very beginning, because you're just learning what you want to cover, you know, how you're going to approach it, what you might want for your program. You're not going to know that right off. So, you know, towards the end of the calendar year or into the spring, I think for their first year would be fine.
Jackie, let me just add something too on top of that. You know, the way you utilize your committee will determine how good of a committee you have. And what I mean by that is, if you're inviting people out to come to your advisory committee and all they do is sit and listen to you talk or listen to people present to them, and they're really having no feedback or no interaction, and the things that they're saying are having no impact on program or changes, or they don't see that they're being valued at all, then they're not going to want to continue to participate. This is a really key part of setting up your successful career tech program, is to have a good industry driven advisory committee that really supports your program. So you don't want to come at them from the standpoint of, you're going to be doing, you know, we need you to do all this for us. We need you to you know, provide equipment. We need you to tell us how to do all these things. It needs to be more about, they need to be able to see that they're really providing you with valuable input, and you're taking it to heart and you're actually implementing their suggestions. Or if you're not, like Jackie said, you're telling them why you can't, why you were unable to do it, and you're documenting all that. So if they see that they're being valued, they're going to become a really strong partner for you, and all those other things are going to develop. They're going to develop into the type of person who wants to say, how can I help you more? Can I come in and do maybe some mock interviews with your students? I mean, they're going to start volunteering to do some of those things if you're making them into the right kind of an advisory committee member, if that makes sense.
Very good, Carrie.
There's one more question that I think is still really important. How do they find industry professionals to join the committee?
Well, they're going to need to reach out. So, you know, if they're doing desktop publishing, they're going to want to reach out in the community, find those businesses that have those, and they may be entrepreneurs. I mean, that's okay too. They just need to reach out to the community, ask around. If they're new to the community, ask those other teachers, you know, get connected, see if you can go to some of the social or community organizations and recruit people that would be interested in helping. You know, one is, I just want to also expand on what Carrie said. You know, we have a couple, well, more than a couple, but I right off the top of my head, I'm thinking of a couple programs that have awesome advisory committees. And those advisory committees actually provide that program with most of their projects. They are actually doing projects for the community through that advisory committee. And so, you know, it's a two-way street. They're helping them understand what they need to be teaching, and yet they're also providing a service. And in the process, it's a, you know, a real world work experience. So I just wanted to add that. Any other questions?
I want to address the finding your business partners. Don't make it too difficult. Don't think too much into it. The businesses that you frequent often, if you stop pretty frequently for a coffee, who are the business owners there? Look on their social media pages, and who are the people that are sharing on social media a lot? That would be your marketing people or your web design or digital people. Every business is probably going to have an IT person. If they don't have an IT person on staff, then they probably have someone they could recommend. That would be another person that you could utilize. If you teach some cybersecurity or things like that, then reach out to one of your local military or your the organization that's in the school programs and some of the bigger schools. Reach out to some of those and have them be on your advisory committee. It's not difficult. I know I waited for a long time, put it off. And once I decided to just dig in, I found an accountant that was amazing and who was willing to help support me get some curriculum in my classroom. So if they suggest things that you don't think that you can afford, ask them. Don't be afraid to ask them for their help. If they've suggested it, it's probably pretty important, and say, well, I only have this much money to spend. Could you help me with that? Because that's what our advisory committee is for. They want to help your students. And if you get someone involved, they're going to be very involved.
And that's another opportunity for those lottery grants too.
Yes.
Okay, I'll stop sharing. Thank
Okay.
you very much. If you have any other questions, shoot those out to us and we'll get those answered.
Well, we are going to start talking about this thing called the group project. Now, this is my favorite part of the day. And you may be thinking, how in the world are we going to do a group project? So let me share with you. Maybe I'll go ahead and start sharing it. We'll talk about it as we're looking at it here. Okay, so this group project, we're going to place you in groups of 5 to 7 people. We are going to put you in the groups on Zoom. You are going to work on finding a way to promote either BPA or DECA. Now, in real life, when you are all together with us in person, sometimes our people will go to a different room and they'll video each other. They'll do wild and crazy things, and the videos are hysterical. Some of them are just crazy creative, and some of them, I don't think I've seen a bad video. They're all so much fun. This is going to be a new challenge, being virtual, but everything is virtual right now, so we figured might as well take a shot at it. You will be able to record however you choose to do this. There are some suggestions on this form. This is also found in CTU. So if you think, you can't remember some of the details, log into that Teacher Academy page and just scroll down to this section from the agenda. The first thing you're going to want to do in your group is figure out a group name. I want some creativity. figure out a group name. Also, when you're in the group, if you have information in the chat, it might even be a good idea to put your contact information in the chat. And then before you leave your chat, you will click on the 3 little buttons and you can save that chat information. But you have to do it before you leave your group so that you are able to get all of your chat information, because no one else will be able to see it when you get back into the big group. When they get back into the big group though, they'll be able to save it, right? Because it'll be part of their chat, right? That didn't dawn on me when we were talking about this earlier. Okay, so this video that you're going to create is something that normally you might create it with your students, but consider that you are all promoting this BPA or DECA. It's something maybe you would want to show at open house, or if you have a parent-teacher night, parent-teacher conferences, meet the teacher night, something that you could use for one of those events. And I know you all can read, but I will read this for you. Creativity will be key when you're completing this assignment. You're encouraged to use any means of technology to create your commercial. So what we were asking is for you to create a 30 to 60 second video commercial. And then when you present it tomorrow, because tomorrow afternoon after lunch is when we're going to present the videos. So when you are about to play your video, then you would give like a 1 to 3 minute live introduction before you show the video. So you'll need to figure out who's going to do the intro and if you're going to divide it up among you. Now there is a rubric. So if I scroll on down, this is everything that we are looking for in your video, in your little production. So you can, again, you can go find this on CTU. Now here are some ideas, just some suggestions. There are so many other suggestions or a lot of other options that you may know of that I don't have listed here. So iMovie, PowerPoint, Powtoons, Movie Maker, all of these things. Now you may have already thought of something else that's not on this list, and that's just fine. And I think it would be super exciting if you did something wild and crazy and you shared it with us, because you may be able to show us something that we hadn't thought of, and it may give our other teachers that are here today some great ideas. Okay, I feel like I've left something out. Do you have any questions about this project? Let me say this too. I know that you're going to have an hour. You're going to have till 3 o'clock, right? Is that right? Yes. I'm going to give you till 3 o'clock to work with your group on this project. The most that you may do today while we're in this moment, in this hour, is you might just use this time for planning. You can work on this when we dismiss at 3:30. You all can work separately. You may have a different avenue to meet together. So you may use Google Teams, or you may have your own Zoom chat, and you can use that as well. But what I'm offering is tonight at 6 o'clock, I will be live on Zoom. And so if your group wants to meet together tonight, from 6 to 8, I will be live with Zoom and put you in your groups. So it's going to take a little more than an hour probably, but I will offer up Zoom tonight from 6 to 8. You may not need it. You don't have to use our Zoom link. You can use whatever you want to. It's just know that it's available for you. Now I can't see the chat box. Does anybody have any questions before we start putting you into your groups?
Just remember to add your contact information. They need to share that while they're in their group so that they can get back together however they decide to do that. Just make sure that they have that information before we take them out of that room.
Okay, good idea. And we are going to be dropping in on groups. So Paxton is going to throw one of us into your group, and then as soon as, just in case you have questions while we're there, and then when we're done with your group, we'll leave and she'll put us in a different group. So you may not see us right away, but one of us will be in your group soon. Okay, here we go, groups.
Are you ready?
I think we're ready. Let's do this.
I'll send everyone to their groups.
Yes.